Thank you. I'd like to go ahead and start the public hearing section of the Warrenton Board of Alderman meeting for Tuesday, December 19th, 2017 at this time. I'd like to have Jack Haniff come forward to the podium and present the Site Plan 109.
Good evening, Mayor and Board.
Good evening, Jack.
This is a site plan approval request for the Dollar General, Site Plan SP 109. On March the 1st, 2017, a request was filed for site plan approval for a proposed Dollar General store to be located at 513 North Highway 47. Property is zoned RC1, Planned Business District. Motion for approval passed 8-0 with 2 absent. At the December 7th, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting with a condition requiring a cross-access agreement. I'd like to ask to make part of the public hearing record the municipal code by reference, the public hearing notice, my planning and zoning report, and the 2016 Warrenton Comprehensive Plan.
Be duly noted. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
At this time, just for the public hearing section of this, for the Site Plan 109 regarding Dollar General, if you want to say anything on that regards, please come forward to the podium. We'll give you 5 minutes to speak. We also will be discussing this later on in the agenda as well. We'll be discussing this as well later on for the bills. Not seeing anyone, we'll go ahead and bring the public hearing section to a close. And we will open the regular Board of Aldermen meeting for Warrenton Board of Aldermen for Tuesday, December 19th, 2017. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I apologize about the tongue tie there. Before we get on to the next item, I want to go ahead and note that we are removing item 17A from the agenda at this time. We'll be discussing that in depth. Therefore, we have removed the bills ordinance at this time. Next item would be the consent agenda items.
First item is the regular meeting minutes from December 5th, 2017, the executive meeting minutes from December 5th, 2017, approval to purchase concrete forms and pins from New Way in the amount of $3,217.47, which was the low bid. And then there's a change to this. It's approval to hire Matthew Schmutz as a police officer at $17.23 an hour with a start date of January 17th, 2018.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Alderman Deloy, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz,
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey,
Yes.
Alderman Costello,
Yes.
Alderman Ock,
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Next, we'll be hearing from the public. If there's anything you'd like to discuss, we ask that you come to the podium. Please state your name, and we'll give you 5 minutes to speak. No, we'll discuss it later on. I promise one of us will prompt you. It's all right. Not seeing anyone, we'll move on to the next item. Hearing for the Board of Aldermen.
Couple things. I understand that the Board of Aldermen will be meeting quite regularly in January.
Yes,
we have been
very much so.
Been warned by our Director of Operations, and as part of that, one of the things I would like to talk about, and I don't know that it fits in exactly one of those particular meetings we're going to have, but I've been receiving complaints about people parking in their front yards. And I know that before I came back on the board, have made a lot of effort to try to clean up the city, to try to get it back to a better quality look in particular. And I think that's something I would like to put on one of those agendas, and I would just like to ask the board's indulgence if we could have the city attorney see how other cities are dealing with that issue. You know, it doesn't seem like there's any rhyme or reason. They just decide to park in the front yard.
One of the things, Alderman Costello, that is on our list to do in the new year is to revisit our property maintenance code section of our code. We do not have that meeting scheduled in January, but we certainly could get it scheduled. But there are many sections of that that the board has talked about looking at and reviewing to see if there are changes we want to make. This would fall right in with those parts of the code if you want to go ahead and get that meeting scheduled.
Well, I would, if there's no objection with the rest of the board. I know that our code and compliance has many things that they try to keep up with. I'm sure they don't want us adding more, but that sure seems you can have a great-looking neighborhood, and if somebody decides that instead of using their driveway or the public parking area, they just park in the yard. So.
Okay, let
I had
me
a
see where
complaint
I
this
can
morning.
fit that in.
Okay. And then to the happy things, I'd like to congratulate our city attorney on his new bouncing baby boy.
8 days old today.
Everybody's doing good?
Doing well, yes.
Great,
Not
great.
much sleep, but
And I'd like to just wish everyone Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
I thought with your comment about January, all the meetings, that you were for sure going to ask for a pay raise, but you know.
Would you like me to bring that up? You've got a date coming up.
There we go.
No, we're well paid.
Any other comments? All right. We'll move on to the mayor's comments. There again, wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year if we don't see you guys out on the streets. A lot of exciting things happening. I can't even express how many comments and wows and oohs and ahs I've gotten about how the progress on the overpass is going, and I'm excited about that. I think it's wonderful. I think we've got a lot of positive things turning around for us. Obviously, got a lot of businesses still looking at us, and I think that's a thing to look at our new year, that we may have a big turnaround this next year, and I hope the city's ready for it. I hope everybody else is ready for it. There's always people that don't like that change, but I'll tell you what, I think it's something that our city is ready to welcome as a whole. Individuals, I get it, and I understand it, and I can hear their side of it, and definitely give a heart to it. But all in a whole, everybody I've talked to, they're really excited about the change we're having and the growth we're having. So I in turn am very excited to hear about it as well. I do need to go into some boards and commission appointments. The Board of Adjustment, I'm seeking to reappoint Teresa Scott and Scott Costello for a 5-year term on the Board of Adjustments. For Building Board, I'm seeking to reappoint Rick Briggenjohn. I always butcher his Johan. Gary Scott and Fred Flake for a 2-year term on the Building Board. Planning and Zoning, 4-year term for reappointment for Rich Barton and Phil Priest. For Tourism Commission, a 3-year term reappointment for Tammy Miller. Any questions about any of those? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the mayor's boards and commission appointments.
So move.
Second.
Alderman Miller, I'm sorry. Motion made by Alderman Miller, seconded by Alderman Shell Harvey. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Delloy?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. All right. Next item would be the presentation of audit results. Council, please come to the podium if you would.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I appreciate you having me here again this year. As I always kind of say every year, we really enjoy our trip to Warrenton to do the audit. Gabrielle has the books in fantastic shape. It's probably one of the most organized audits I go on every year, so we definitely enjoy coming here and having a good time at it. City received an unmodified, or the term was unqualified opinion, which means everything's fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with GAAP. If you look at page 7, there's a summary of revenues and expenses for the general government operations. A couple of the bigger items, citywide sales tax increased $682,000 or 25% to a little over $3.4 million for the year, mostly due to, well, all due to the new capital improvement sales tax and the economic development sales tax to pay for the interchange. Property tax increased about $10,000, which is about 2%, so kind of a small increase there. The other line with the big increase, capital grants and contributions, that was an almost $500,000, the NSP grant that you guys received during 2017. And then increase in functional expenses, the next section there. A lot of what drove most of those categories up was you guys being in loggers now. So there's going to be 2 separate expenses for the city related to loggers. There's going to be what you actually pay each year, which you'll see in the fund statements, but then there's also going to be an expense for what the estimated liability is, the difference between what you earned on your investments and what your expectation is, and a lot of different things get amortized into the government-wide expenses. So it's much more of an expense, where in the funds, it's more of an expenditure, so how much you pay, okay? And I'll talk a little bit, you can see those numbers in the back in a minute. And then the street department, you can see had a really huge increase, and that's mostly due to the interchange. So what happens there is, since the city's not going to own the interchange, as you build it out, it's going to be an expense to the city, because we're not going to call it a capital asset and depreciate it, because you're not the owner, even though you're paying for it. Okay? So for the next year too, that number is going to be humongous, but that's what that is. And then also government, in the general government, you paid down about $250,000 in debt, but you added 1.8 this year for the interchange, and then the rest of it'll hit next year. Just kind of, it came in July, so.
Quick question.
Sure.
So you just said on the street department, the big number is because we're expensing the overpass.
Correct.
Shouldn't somewhere in here reflect the?
Well,
I mean, isn't if the overpass is expense, isn't the low in revenue, and shouldn't that reflect also in big variance?
yeah, in the government-wide statements, which these are based on, it is a loan, a
Right.
debt, a liability. So it is kind of a downside of the way GAAP is for these particular statements. Now, in the fund statements, the ones that you guys look at all the time, it will be money coming in for the debt,
Okay.
but not on the government-wide. I know that seems a little
Yeah.
disconnected.
Yeah, because you would think you would say you'd have a large variance in the expenses, but you should have income to cover that expenses reflected, and you don't. See
Right. But yes, on these, it shows up as a liability,
Right.
because most of the time, you're going to get an asset when you borrow that money.
Right.
But we also see it a lot with TIF debt too. So it's kind of the same thing. If a city has a TIF, they're paying for infrastructure that's not an asset to them, but they still carry the debt on their books.
So for comparative purposes, if you look at this, it says last year, Government Activity Fund made $151,000. This year, it's showing a loss of $1.3 million.
You're right.
Is that all the overpass, or if you back that out, what would that really be?
Yeah, I think
For
the
comparative
overpass was probably right at that number. I mean, it was maybe a little more even. I want to say it was 1.5 in.
So if we back that out, we might be in a comparable position.
Yes.
To the prior year, where the prior year was, 151,000. We're probably in that.
Correct.
If it wasn't for the goofy government
Right.
accounting.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. If you flip to the next page, that has the water and sewer fund there. There was about a 5.8% increase in water and sewer revenue, mostly due to the 4% increase in rates there. Expense-wise, there was a $120,000 increase. $240,000 hit that for the pension. So if you took the pension out, you would be to the plus by $120,000 in water and sewer. Okay, and this one's a little unusual too. Water and sewer follows full accrual, so it's going to always recognize the pension expense and not necessarily the cash flow like the funds do. So, and then you also pay down $660,000 in debt in the water and sewer fund. The cash flow statement for water and sewer is on page 22. You can kind of see maybe a little better there. So the top section is going to be cash flow from operations. So you can see operations are generating about $2.6 million for 2017. Out of that, down in the third section, you have to pay principal, you have to pay interest. So that kind of eats away at that. In addition, you constructed or purchased additional fixed assets equal to $4.5 million. Now, a lot of that was covered by debt issued in a previous year that you're still spending down, which is why you have a large use of cash this year, but all the proceeds from that debt came in a previous period. On page, jump back to the other.
So is this converting statements basically to a cash flow? Because, I mean, it looks unusual to see cash paid to suppliers is a positive number, but cash to employees is a negative number.
Oh, you're right. That is unusual.
I mean, it's unusual because you would think expenses would always be consistent
Right.
categories in the same way.
There must have been a correction in that one.
Okay.
You're right. That is very unusual.
Yeah.
Let me check into that one a little closer and see if something got in the wrong bucket. I mean, the total should be right.
The bottom is right.
Right.
It's
yeah.
a mix in between some.
You're right.
Okay.
That does look unusual. I'm sorry. If you go back to page 18, I was just going to hit the fund statements real quick. And this is a little more what you're used to seeing on a monthly basis. General fund, expenses exceeded revenues by $1.1 million in the general fund. Again, another bit of unusual happenings. There was about $1 million for Hickory Lick in expenditures last year. So,
For the record, I didn't vote for that.
Alderman Ock is fully aware of it.
I'm fully aware of it.
and then there's another $500,000 for sidewalks and asphalt and things like that. So, it has a few non-reoccurring type items in it in 2017. The fund balance covers, if you look at fund balance compared to expenditures, it covers about 189 days. but if you remove the more unusual items, you're at about 230, 250. So, you know, over 6 months worth of expenditures in fund balance. Capital Improvements Fund has about $750,000, a little over that, in fund balance, so that's what's available to spend there. The new interchange is in a separate fund, so debt proceeds are going to come into there, down under other financing sources. As you spend it, it's going to be under expenditures, under capital outlay. That fund will also take in the taxes that'll be used to pay back the debt. So that's what's going in that one. And then non-major funds are the smaller ones, Parks and Tourism, Cemetery, and IDA, and their schedules are in the back if you're interested in that. All right, so I was going to talk about the pension a little bit. So the city joined loggers in August of 15. If you flip to page 48, there's a pretty good schedule there. And eventually this schedule will be 10 years of information. So what this is trying to show you, the top section, the pension liability, so that's the actuary's estimate of the benefits that you've promised employees. So that's at $1.5 million at the end of June 16. So this one's going to always trail by a year just because the timing of how long it takes them to get the information ready, it would hold up the audit. So we're going to use 1 year trailing. The second section is the assets set aside to pay those benefits. So planned fiduciary net position is $210,000. So that's what's been contributed as of last June. And then it comes down to a difference of $1.3 million for the net pension liability. And that number is going to end up on that government-wide balance sheet. Okay? And then there'll be some other things, the difference between the expected rate of return on investments and the actual rate of return will be a number that'll go on that balance sheet and then amortized over 5 years. And then any kind of changes in assumptions go on the balance sheet and get amortized over the service life. So it tries to keep that income statement from jumping around a lot, but what it does do is that net pension liability is going to bounce around a lot. So 1 year it might be $1.3 million. If you have a really good year in the market, it might be $800,000 next year, which would be my guess since 17 was pretty good. But then the next year, if you have a bad year, then it might be $1.5 million. So, so then this table will be 10 years eventually. Every year we'll add a year until we get to 10. And then you can kind of see the fluctuations so you can get a better idea of what reality probably is.
Is the payout pretty is the contribution on the city side pretty consistent? But the liability is going to jump up and around basically based on market. The pay-in is still pretty consistent now.
Right, because right now you guys are 6% of salary. I think it's 6.3 for general and 6% for police of salary, and then the employee kicks in 4%.
Okay.
Loggers is not allowed to change it by more than 1% in any 1 year. So, and they do a pretty good job. I would say every city that I go to that has loggers is at least 95% funded. Some of them are even over 100. So they're very conservative with the amount of money that they collect to try and not let you get behind and get down in that 70 or 60% funded ratio. Now you guys are at 13%, but that's because it's year one. You're trying to make up for some time, you know, for prior service credits and things like that. So, you know, you would hope that every year that 13.37% grows for you guys. Now I will say, in a year when you have negative returns in the market, it's going to take a big hit because, and you guys aren't paying out anything yet. You know, there's a couple thousand. when you start to really pay out money and then you lose money on your investments, that net pension liability is going to jump pretty significantly. But that's where, you can go back to this schedule and kind of see historically we've been at that 80 or 90%. So, yeah, we're at 70 now, but once the market recovers, we'll be okay again. All right. On the next page, on the top of page 49, that will show you what your actual dollar contribution is. And then the second column shows the difference between your actual contribution and what the actuary said you should contribute. And for loggers, 99.9% of the time, those numbers are going to be the same. There was a little bit of a period after the crash in '08 when loggers really wanted to raise that rate more than 1% and couldn't. So a few cities had contributions below the actuarial recommended amount, but it worked out pretty quickly once the market recovered a little bit. So any questions about the pension stuff? I know that's kind of some out there stuff.
So we're never going to be in a position, though, where our contribution's going to be greater than what we're putting in. Loggers can't come back, and so let's say the market goes crazy, we have a lot of people retiring, and then you look at our fund, and you go, man, the city needs to kick in 300% or
Right.
some huge number.
Right.
We're not in a position where we're ever going to have to do that, because the theory is over time you look at it and you're going to keep paying it at this level, anticipating a recovery in your specific account.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yes. And they are, it's state statute, I believe it's a statute that they can't bump you more than that 1%. And they could hit you 3 years in a row.
Right.
But even then, that's still a pretty manageable compared to cities that have their own separate pension where, I've seen their contribution triple over a 5-year period because you get a couple bad years in a row.
Right.
and have big legacy, liabilities.
Which I guess the advantage of this is you're pooled with so many other cities, you avoid that
Yes,
situation.
but you do have a separate account.
Right.
So at Loggers, you have your own money, basically. Now, they pool it for investment purposes,
Right.
but they don't take your money and pay some other city's benefit. All right. Any questions there? Management report wise, kind of basic management report. The statements are the city's responsibility. We're just issuing an opinion on those. Statements include estimates. Now the pension is a ginormous estimate for you guys going forward. That's the main thing there. On the graphs, there are a few graphs at the back of the management report. The first one is general fund revenues, and this one gives you a little more detail on the individual types of taxes as opposed to what's in the financial statements, and you can kind of see your trends there for the different types of taxes, and then kind of the big jump in the miscellaneous and grants is that $500,000 grants. On the next page is general fund expenditures. And you can see that they're fairly consistent, except for capital outlay, which tends to jump around quite a bit. Otherwise, there's nothing really outside of the trend.
I think last year, did the paper publish this graph? It'd be nice if the paper would put a graph in about the city, just because, especially the one that breaks down the revenues. Because, sometimes you hear people say, oh, we pay so much in this or so much in that, and it really shows how dependent on sales tax the city really is. We're not as dependent when it comes to property tax. It's still money, but it's not where we live and breathe. And that's why I think from a city perspective, as we look at the interchange and we look at working with developers to come in town, this is really critical to what runs the city and provides services for the city. And I think people, sometimes you look at that as just a consumer, well, it's an opportunity to buy something different, or why I can go to Wentzville and get the same thing, or I go to Stout. But the sales tax revenue from all these developments we're working on and projects we're working on really is the backbone of what funds the city. I think the graph really shows that. If the people could see that in the newspaper, it might be interesting. I assume you're the boss, right?
I mean, we'd be happy to have it if you wanted to send it to us for the next meeting. We can do that.
All right. And then the last one is the water and sewer fund. And there too, you can kind of see, follow the trend line pretty well. There was a bump in 15 in expenses that kind of is outside the trend. And that was mostly due to the fact that you guys issued debt in 15. So there was cost of issuance, and there was an increase in interest expense. Things like that that kind of pushed 15 up a little more. All right. Any other questions? Stop boring me with all this.
Anybody else have any questions? Any questions? Thank you for your presentation.
So not to embarrass Gabrielle, but thank you for the great job you do. It's good to hear the auditor stand up and say it's fun to come out and do an audit at the city. I don't know if you would say it's fun to work with an audit, but that's a great compliment.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you and your term. Publicly they say, okay. I'm not going to ask her to say if it's fun or not. But.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Move on to the next item, which would be the Greater Warren County Economic Development Committee College Initiative Committee. Mr. Shiller, if you'd like to.
Yes, sir. I asked the mayor to put this on the agenda because I got a phone call from Ricky Gastorf. I'm sorry, I had to think for a minute. Wanting to know for sure if the city was going to put a representative on the steering committee. And first thing I'd like to do is let's take the Greater Warren County Economic Development Committee out of the thing now. It is now going to be, it will be actually a steering committee for the pursuit of this junior college. And the steering committee, it is co-chaired, going to be co-chaired by Ricky Gastorf, whom you all are familiar with, and also Leon Bushdiker, who I think most everybody is familiar with. He was with the school here for many years. He is now involved in VOTEC with the state of Missouri, and so he, I think, is a big asset to this committee just because of all the people he deals with on the state government level and just the other vocational tech schools and all that. So I want to ask the board for support and to go ahead and have the mayor, or we can do a search or something for a representative on this committee. The committee, of course, is asking for people from all different parts of the county. This, again, is not just a Warrenton City thing. This is county. So right now, the county has committed one of their commissioners to serve on it. The city of Wright City, they have two people that are interested in serving on it, and they're going to choose one of those. Truesdale is committed to putting a person on it. I think that is either going to be Chris Watson or Mike Thomas. I'm not sure for sure. Wright City School, R2, There they have 2 or 3 people, again, interested in serving on it. Excuse me. And they're committed, they're going to appoint somebody. R3, Warrenton School District, it's going to be kind of a tag team thing with them. The interim superintendent is going to be involved with it until the new superintendent takes over in August, I think it is. So they're on board. Also, there's a group of what I call young entrepreneurs, or what they call it, young entrepreneurs. They're from real estate, construction, and business in Warrenton and Warren County, and there's several of those people going to serve on it. Also, representatives from the agriculture, large manufacturing, and some retired people from some of the larger companies, such as I know Tom Brune is interested in serving on it. He's retired from GM. The main focus these people have on it is, again, the vocational tech educational development of these of the young people here to fill the needs that these different businesses, be it manufacturing, IT people, all along the spectrum. They're trying to. And again, this is not going to be a short, right down a couple years. It's going to be 2 to 3, 5 years maybe, but I think everybody's getting on board with it. I think it would be a mistake if we did not participate, at least to keep up with what's going on in this. One thing I will add, I know we had the president from ECC here and spoke before us, and I don't know, maybe we could invite St. Charles Community College rep too, I don't know. But one of the things I'd like to bring up, one of the first things that was done in regards to this, they call it due diligence, and one of them was to send a questionnaire to both ECC and St. Charles Community College, and that was basically a questionnaire of what our local needs might be and how they would each respond to them. That went out, I think, the second week of November. They had St. Charles Community College. They've already got their response back. We're still waiting to hear from East Central. So that's going to be kind of like the starting point of this whole committee, is how each of them can best see what they see down the road as being our needs and meeting our needs in this area. So,
Mike, just for clarification, when you started your comments, I understood you to say that this is no longer a Greater Warren County Economic Development Council project?
Well, it really isn't anymore once this committee gets up and going. Brian Spencer tasked the Greater Warren County Economic Development Commission.
And Brian Spencer is the
state rep
for where?
From eastern Warren County and western St. Charles County.
So he's
and
not
part of Lincoln County too.
So Bart
was involved.
Foreman is our, and that answers a question, because the document I have in front of me is from the Greater Warren County Economic Development Council, signed by their president, Wayne Baker. And the first line says, the Greater Warren County Economic Development Council has been tasked to lead an initiative. And that's, when somebody tells me they're tasked, I'd like to know.
Well, I don't think they're going to be totally out of the thing, but this committee will be the main driving force now.
But that's not the question I think Greg's asking. I think Greg's saying, whose initiative is this really? Is this the initiative of Mr. Spencer, who doesn't represent the city of Warrenton, or is this the initiative of Bart, who is the representative for the people of the Warrenton?
It started out, the reason it started out was Brian, who also, like I said, represents parts of Lincoln County, St. Charles, and Warren. Lincoln County had the opportunity to get this. They opted out, at least as far as where it's at right now. Brian came before, basically, and I think Bart was involved too, although he's not leading the charge. But they set Brian's at one of the functions he spoke at. He made the comment that now this was Warren County's to lose. So that's where it got started, and then he felt that it not being something that one city could take the initiative with, he thought it would best be a group already in place. That's why I think he chose the Economic Development Group.
What do you think his underlying agenda is? Because is his underlying agenda to get the junior college that's in his school district, or in his district, to have an outlying operation in his district? Or is he interested in having a operation sitting outside his district? And I mean, why would he want to promote? What's behind promoting this? Do you know? I mean, you'd like to think it's for the common good, but I would think that would be more of a joint tasking by Bart Corman and him together to say this is what we need in this district. So I don't know if this is a promotional district for him to support the school, the college in his district, or I don't know what the motivation is. I mean,
his motivation is to get a tech school out in this area.
In eastern Warren County, in his district?
In eastern Warren County, central Warren County. The site will be one of the last, probably the last things they deal with. Like I say, there's a lot of hurdles that we have to go over yet, before. But
I guess where
I think again, my point is, I think it would be remiss of us if we did not at least have a representative at the table.
Well, I've been doing this a while, and one of the things that I found over the last 21 or 22 years is that many times one government seems to want to tell another governing body that has the responsibility and the authority for these things what to do. And very early on, and I think Alderman Ock was around a few times when this happened, we'd have somebody that would come in and say, well, why doesn't the city of Warrenton do such and such that would help the school district? And our absolute answer was that that's not our responsibility, and it's not our right to spend city tax dollars on something that is a school district issue. What I heard from the president of East Central when he came here was that the decision to change this college district is the responsibility of Warren R2 and Warren R3. And I personally don't know enough about education, and I don't feel I or one of our members should be telling the school districts whether they need to put a tax increase on and sell it to the voters. I like Alderman Ock, I have a little concern as what the motivation is. Representative Brian Spencer could certainly propose this same issue in his district in St. Charles County. But that would be raising the taxes of St. Charles County voters, not Warren County. So I guess that and the issue that we are not, the city of Warrenton is not a member of the Greater Warren County Economic Development Council, although we've offered them the fee structure that they suggested. We simply said we needed an audited financial statement, and to my understanding, that's never been signed and they've never received their money. So when you start the conversation out that this now suddenly is not a Greater Warren County Economic Development Council sponsored issue, and yet the letter we have says that they were somehow tasked, I am pleased that we now know who tasked them. It was Brian Spencer, according to what you told us. I just think it's a bit confusing, and I'm not sure I want to be presumptuous enough to be the one that wants to tell our school districts what they think the future should be in education.
I don't think they want us to tell them, Greg. I think this is a group that wants to work together. The superintendent of the school, the interim superintendent was there. The superintendent from Wright City was there. They understand that this is, I don't think it's them wanting us to tell them what to do or them saying what they want to do. It's a group that is trying to find what it's going to take, excuse me, to bring a junior college to this area. And maybe, and I don't know, maybe it won't pan out. I don't know.
It seems like we're stepping in the middle of a fight, because the other thing that the gentleman said who was here last time is these areas of where junior colleges serve are already set out. So as I was listening to him, it felt like maybe the junior college to the east wants to expand their area at the expense of college that's already agreed to set up here, and we're entering into this conversation initiated by him, and I would assume he's representing St. Charles School District or St. Charles Community College, to position community support to say, well, really Warrenton or Warren County is really not part of East Central Junior College. It's really part of us. So you get all these players sitting at the table making that case, and all of a sudden you're reshaping your district, and we're a part of that. That's what it feels
And
like.
you didn't listen to all of it, because he
Well,
also said that the junior college districts work together to reshape them.
They do, but I can say the fact is, right now, where we sit, we are in the East Central Taxing District. The taxing district would have to change the St. Charles Community College taxing district, and that would take the admission from the school district to be able to change that from the Warren County R3, would have to be able to submit that to the ballot to change that to become a St. Charles County or St. Charles Community College taxing district for them to even be able to consider coming here. We've been East Central for as long as I can remember for taxing district.
We do not
So I know that's
pay
not something
taxes.
what's that?
And we do not.
Oh, I
pay-
believe there's part of the property tax that comes out if you look on the itemized cut down.
Not for the ECC.
Are you sure?
I didn't see anyone doing
Do I understand correct that if this project would come to fruition, it would take approximately a 16-cent tax increase to fund that program? Am I remembering correctly,
it? How
or
much, Gary?
16 cents?
Well, it depends if you're,
Right now, we pay none.
if
We
you,
pay to go to East Central, but we're not being taxed on property taxes.
That's what he said, that since we're outside the immediate taxing district of East Central, that's our college area for kids to go to, but since we don't contribute to the general pot on your property tax bill, they have to pay a little higher tuition. Now, if we were sitting down in Marthasville where they are collecting some tax for East Central Community College, then their students would pay less because they're getting
Right.
general fund revenue in through property tax, whereas up here, it's not really been defined that way. Our students go there as part of the agreement, and it is worked out together, I agree with you, Mike, but sometimes there's a lot of things going on behind the way it's worked out.
To answer Gary Miller's question, if you, with the ECC district, the levy is 45 cents per $100. St. Charles Community College levy is 21 or 22 cents per $100. Now, whichever one we would become part of, we would have to at least meet it. We could go higher, but we would have to at least meet it. I think we couldn't go lower due to
So in the case you're talking about is 22 cents.
is St. Charles.
Yeah, if they come in, we would have to increase our rates by 22
At
cents.
least, yeah, 22
The
cents.
school district.
School district, yes.
And by no means, understand, I know you don't have all the answers. I know you're just equipped with what you've asked questions and answered for.
And I think, that's part of the reason I think we should have a representative on this, is to get more of the answers.
You talked about this committee that you want us to appoint somebody to. Who would that committee report back to?
Well, I think if we wanted to keep apprised of what's going on, I think we'd report back to us.
No.
No, who do they?
So you're forming this committee, and you've told us the individuals that you think are going to be on it. Who do they report back to with their findings?
Report back to Brian.
Well, I
Special
guess
directly?
the, and whichever, one of the first things they would do is from this questionnaire they sent out is decide which educational institution they would prefer to go with. And again, that would be a decision made by that group, which has the school districts represented and everything, so. And I'm not sure exactly what the votes, how much weight each one's gonna carry vote-wise, whatever. I haven't gotten in.
I think in the paper, when I read the article, they published, I think it was 3 weeks ago?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
There was an article that was published, I believe you spoke with Mr. Baker in regards to some of this, or one of
He
you.
spoke at the City of Truesdale.
Okay, so he did a presentation at the City of Truesdale, okay. I believe in some of that, though, they did talk about the taxing district, and before they could even decide which one to go with, it would have to go up on ballot issue before the people could decide if they wanted to stay with East Central or St. Charles Community College. That it would actually have to be, I think by state statute, it has to be a ballot issue.
But that was Greg's point was, so you get this committee doing all this work, and they're coming up with ideas and recommendations. Who are they gonna take them to? Are they taking them to Representative Spence? Are they taking them to the Greater Warren County Economic Development Council? Are they taking it, I mean, this
They would
committee's
hold-
working for somebody.
They would hold public forums
I understand
to
that.
try to share the vision with the public, and then develop a public information campaign, is my understanding. But,
I guess
I don't know, we've
it
taken
seems to
up
me
a
there's a
long time.
vision already there, and they're trying to form a committee to support that vision, and I'm okay with that, as long as it's not the city of Warrenton's vision, because I don't feel adequate, or certainly not informed enough to be making decisions on what secondary education we should have here. I really believe this issue is a Warren R2 and a Warren R3 school district issue. They're the ones that are going to have to vote to realign the districts, and they're the ones that are going to have to convince the public to pay a higher tax, either 22 cents per hundred or 45 cents per hundred, or nothing. And you know,
Well, you're right, it's a Warren County, it's not a Warrenton decision, it's a Warren County decision. But I think we should be involved in,
Does anybody know, did Mr. Baker do a presentation down in Wright City? Do you know? I think.
I didn't know they did one in Truesdale.
Well, I will say, and it's no offense to you, because there's a lot of pressure been put on you to answer some of these questions that you may or may not have the answers to. I really kind of feel we're at a little bit of a disadvantage if there was a presentation in Truesdale. I wish the presentation would have been able to come and been presented to us. And for whatever reason, I don't know if maybe Truesdale asked them to come. I don't know.
I mean, doesn't this come down to basically the question is, do you as the mayor want to appoint somebody? And if you don't, you don't. If you do.
Well, no, I've actually asked this to be put on here because I think this is something we as a board collectively need to decide. I'll make an appointment, but I think as a board, we need to decide whether we want to be a part of this collectively. This is potentially a big step. I mean, you're looking at a percentage or a tax increase possibly, a change in district. It does have a lot of implications, but we as a city council, I think, need to make this decision, and that's why, even though there was a deadline of December 15th to make our decision, I think very wisely, Alderman Shorby asked for this to be on the ballot, or on the discussion topic, to be able to decide where we want to go as a city collectively, instead of me just making a decision on my own. And it may not resound your guys' decision as well.
and this is my last, and I won't say more. You bring up a good point. Let's use the argument we used with the sales tax and the interchange vote. We should let the people have a say in it. In order for them to have a say, maybe we should be a part of this.
well, in an effort to move it off dead center, I would make a motion that we ask Mr. Baker if the Greater Warren County Economic Development Council is still leading this, which seems to be some question whether they are or not. As you said, the committee was not going to report back to them. But if he or if Mr. Baker is president of the Greater Warren County Economic Development Council, or whatever organizational chart they've decided to go with on this, I'd like to at least have the opportunity to hear the same argument that Truesdale heard, and perhaps Wright City. I don't know whether they did or did not. And I think that's the only way I could feel comfortable. And Mike, I'm not against this. I just don't understand quite why a state representative from a adjoining district, albeit a small portion of Warren County is in his district, would task someone, a group in Warren County, to do this work. I agree with you. I think the public does need to decide this, but it doesn't appear to me that this is really very many people in Warren County that thought this is what needed to happen. And that's why I think it's a school district. It really comes down to these school districts, whether they want to propose a higher tax rate per hundred, because school districts have been known to need additional money for their own K through 12, and that would seem to me to be compete against that a little bit. Now, if Warren R2 and Warren R3 decide this is what they want to do, I'd say go for it.
So, and you made a motion. Before we go ahead and look for a second, let me go ahead and ask this of the group collectively. Do you feel at a little bit of a disadvantage, or do you feel like you're well educated on this? Do we want to ask for a presentation from this group to come in and maybe give us a little more explanation? Like, what Alderman Shore already said, it appears this is at an infant stage. I believe we should be able to ask them to come in and do a presentation, and I don't know that we have to give them an answer promptly on this. We could probably wait till next meeting.
I would lean more towards asking them to come make,
A presentation.
To what?
I would lean towards asking them to come make a presentation to us.
I'd go that direction too.
Can launch a presentation.
Do you feel that's fair enough? The other two?
That's fine.
All right, so if you don't mind, I'll let the motion die on the floor, and Terry, if you could be tasked with asking them to please give us a presentation for a little more, to answer more questions that we have.
Sure.
Thank you. So we will table that for next meeting, and hopefully they'll be able to come and do a presentation.
Sure.
And at that point, after we have our answers, we can.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to hearing from Director of Operations and Finance Officer Terry Thorne.
My first item for you this evening is to discuss an ordinance that is later on in our agenda. For many months now, we have been working with the Montgomery County Public Water Supply District, number 1. And the purpose in that work is to come up with a solution to providing sewer services to the currently unserved area out by the north side of the new interchange. Montgomery County Water has water service out there, adequate to service that, but they do not have sewer services. So we have worked to come up with something creative that will allow that area to be served, that will be the least burden upon our existing system. It is their district, so they have the first right and ability to agree to offer services to the area that needs to be served, and they would like to serve that area. That means that we have to have some joint agreement to be able to provide the sewer service that allows then Montgomery County to provide it to the customer. So what we've worked out is an agreement where we would run a sewer main to the location that's really just on the north side of where the Bogeman property is at the new interchange. And there we would put a pit and a master meter that would measure the sewer service that would come in through that master location and then find its way eventually to our sewer treatment plant. The bulk sewer service agreement would then have those customers belong and be customers of Montgomery County Water District. They would do the billing directly to their customers. They would be responsible for maintaining any lines that they put in that would be on the other side of this master meter. We would have one bill each month to Montgomery County Water District for whatever flow comes through that master meter. The beauty of this kind of agreement is that, as we do currently in Warrenton, sewer is billed based on water usage. So if you don't have a water meter to read, you have no ability to bill the individual customers for their sewer usage. So this allows us to be able to provide that service. The city will still be able to collect the revenue to help pay for our system, but we avoid the need to find a way to bill those customers and to make those collections, because the other side of that is, if you don't have the meter and you don't have the water service, then if the sewer customer doesn't pay their bill, you have no water to turn off to force the collection. So there are many reasons why this bulk type of agreement makes it a better proposition for the city of Warrenton than trying to provide those individual customers ourselves.
I understand how what you're saying, how the function works. But we're gonna, and I wasn't here when the St. Charles side was agreed to, but we're basically saying they can bring in residential and commercial businesses outside the city limit?
No. Anybody that would be served by the sewer would have to be annexed into the city.
So would we then control what, I don't want to get in a situation where, like we had to deal with Warrenton Products for years, where they had a lot of effluent, they had to pre-treat. You recall, we spent hours and hours trying to wrestle with pre-treat issues from a private company that was putting a lot in there. How is that situation going to be controlled if we envision the north side of the interstate maybe doing a little bit more industrial?
Right.
So how does that work?
They would have to follow all of the same requirements, just as if we were providing that directly. So probably a good example is the soy sauce company, Yibo, who is within our city limits. They were required to put in pretreatment that was approved by Guy and our engineers. So if there was an industrial user that was sitting north of the interchange, for example, and they wanted to be brought on, first of all, the property would have to be annexed into the city, so it'd have to become an in-town customer. And then they would need to go through the engineering process, just like the soy sauce company, so that the engineers would determine what pretreatment is required to be installed so that what's coming into our system meets our requirements. That's no different than what we would require of somebody in town. So they would need to follow all of the same requirements for those customers connecting to our system that a customer within the city would have to meet.
So on the water side, I mean, the concept is kind of weird that you can be in the city but not be a part of the city water system.
Right?
So now we're saying you can be in the city and not be part of the city water system, not be part of the city sewer system. And so you're going to have somebody who lives on one side of the street who, when they have a water or sewer problem, they call up the city, and somebody on the other side of the street would call up Montgomery Warren County. Is that?
That is correct. And the reality of where we sit right now is whether we expand to the east or whether we expand to the west, it's going to be in a water district.
Right, but it's not.
Or north or south.
But it's not going to be in a sewer district necessarily. But we're saying because of the billing issues, because of the water cutoff and the way the two are tied, we're allowing them to kind of creep into our sewer district. Is that?
It's not our sewer district. If they have the water district, if that's theirs, the utilities belong to them.
Okay, so they own the water and the sewer side.
Right.
It's the whole utility.
Right.
Okay. All right, that
You
makes
can-
sense.
If I can just make one point, you can look at our city limits at what year did they create the districts? Was it like 80-something?
80-something.
And basically, in 1980, our city limits were what they were, and a district was formed to the west and a district was formed to the east that have water and sewer district capabilities. And so we don't have the legal right to service those customers. And we've been back and forth with disputes, and I know Fred remembers this, different agreements and whatnot. And really, we've kind of had this informal, during the last growth period, where if they were in the Montgomery County Sewer District, they couldn't service them. And, you know, it was never anything really formal, and it kind of, that position changed with the different boards and whatnot. But this really kind of formalizes in putting a bulk treatment where basically they're going to be in the city limits and they're going to be a single customer that we provide sewer treatment to. Single payment, single customer. But yes, they could be on both sides of the street, but that's not a product of anything the city designed. That's a product of the districts completely surrounding the city limits in 1982 when they were formed.
With federal grant money.
With federal grant money. And because they have federal grant money, we can't service their customers. There's a statutory formula that if we take their customers, we have to pay the potential loss of those future customers from them. That's millions and millions.
That's the same issue we talked about at Truesdale.
Yeah.
The South Service Road, which side you're on.
Yeah.
So who would maintain the sewer lines?
Up to the master meter would be the city of Warrenton.
Okay,
On the other side of the master meter would be Montgomery County Public Water District.
okay.
Hold your nose.
It's our only option to have growth outside of where we currently are.
Right.
Because we're surrounded.
And
And
this is pretty common, isn't that correct, Chris?
it's very
And
common.
Terry? It's not like a unique thing that we're dealing with. A lot of places that are in this same situation use master meters.
Yes.
So if they have a potential customer who wants sewer service there's no way they can hook them up without them first coming into the city. Is that
Correct.
Okay.
And you'll have a decision to make when you decide whether to allow them to voluntarily annex in anyway. So there's kind of layers of decisions that will be made as you're considering a potential customer.
Okay.
We fully expect that we're going to see this very same agreement on the east side as the new subdivision that's thinking of going in out there starts to move forward, because they're in the very same position. They have water available, no sewer. So
How do we control growth so that we don't overtax the plant?
because any connection has to have approval of the city. So part of what we would look at when someone comes and says, we want to put in a new subdivision and we're going to build 177 homes here, then it would be up to Guy to look at what our capacity is, what the burden currently is on our system. And just like we used to do when subdivisions were going hot and heavy, we always looked at what capacity was needed before we approved those to make sure that we had the capacity to do it in our system. So each one of those would have an additional approval to make sure that we had the capability to handle it.
Hasn't been much of a problem since 2008.
No, but I do remember when the development came in on the South Service Road past Truesdale, and we didn't have a whole lot of capacity, and they proposed a large number of homes, and there was a lot of concern on the part of the board that if these developments start happening outside the city limits and they eat our capacity, then limits our ability to really permit developments within the city limits because the capacity was eaten outside on other projects, and that's where that became an issue. Now, I don't know how close we are to capacity right now, but...
Well, with the expansion, I
We
believe
just did an upgrade of re-rating the plant last year or the year before. I think it was 2 million gallons, we're up to 3.2.
Yeah, that was last year.
Really changed our
without making no major changes.
And Alderman Ock, that was one of our concerns, because there was a lot of surrounding municipalities that had problems with capacity and overpromising capacity. And I just want to cite the language in what we put in here to consider that. We said the district may not connect, we defined the property as basically the North Service Road area where the TIF is, or potential TIF is, where the development's going to be. And we say the district may not connect additional properties or add additional connection points without the consent of the city, and the city will have sole and absolute discretion in determining whether bulk sewer service may be expanded beyond the property, which is defined as that area out there. The reason we did that, we looked at trying to evaluate what our capacity was, but we thought it would be better to kind of do this and service a property, allow expansion of sewer treatment to go, as long as we can make that decision at that point, whether or not we have the capacity and we're doing an updated evaluation of capacity. So we absolutely took that into consideration, knowing that kind of background of capacity being swelled up, because we didn't want to promise a certain set amount of capacity and then we get a development that comes to the, east or to the south that we've basically promised that capacity and we can't utilize it for another development.
So let me repeat what I think you just said to see if I understand it. So if we got to the point where capacity was critical, we had a subdivision inside the city we wanted to hook on, we had a subdivision outside, we could make a decision to say, no, we're not going to serve you, we're going to serve in the city. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, we can make a decision, no, we won't allow you to annex in at this point. We can make a decision, a secondary decision to say, you're in Montgomery County Sewer District, we're not going to provide, in our sole and absolute discretion, provide you sewer service.
still be under for us.
Okay, that's.
We
And
tried
I
to
just
put in
wanna-
as many fail-safes as we could, since we've not had this kind of agreement before, to make sure that we weren't getting into something that would cause a problem for the city later on, but yet will allow us to grow, because as we stand right now, our only ability to expand our boundaries is into somebody's district.
And this administration and previous ones, and this staff and previous ones, I can tell you have done an excellent job in staying up with capacity and have continued to expand our wastewater treatment facility, which most people don't even know where it's at or that it exists. And I can tell you there are surrounding cities that have recently sold their wastewater treatment process because they hadn't kept up. And so,
And couldn't play catch-up.
yes. So it's a huge issue, but I want to commend the staff and past boards and this board for staying on top of that issue, because you can't grow if you don't have the proper treatment.
Yeah, if there's anything, Alderman Costello, I've learned about sewer treatment in these years I've been here, you've got to stay ahead of the game. Because from the time we started talking about improving our sewer lines to the time now that guys getting ready to almost finish what we did on the east side of the city, it's been 5 years.
I remember.
And that wasn't even a treatment
I
plant, that's
think,
just
I
replacing
think that
lines.
that
So,
process was started when Mayor Dyer was here.
yeah.
Well, I mean, look how long the process has taken. I mean, you're battling easements, you're battling all sorts of issues just to do something that's gonna benefit the greater.
Guy Jeevers took me on a tour shortly after I got on the board, and it's quite an operation out there at the sewer plant.
Sure is.
Are there any questions? Any further questions, I should say? Okay, this will be a billed ordinance later.
Yes. That's all I have for you this evening. Thank
No
you.
operational updates.
No.
All right. Next on the agenda, we'll hear from the Assistant Director of Operations, Brandy Walters.
Good evening. Excuse me, I have one item for you tonight, and that is a new policy regarding terminating employments. This came about that we want to make sure that anybody that leaves the city, that their last day of employment is what is on record, the last day that they actually worked and are physically at work. This came about because we had a couple folks that had left, and they may be scheduled to work Wednesday, and then they're off Thursday and Friday, but they want their last day to be Friday because they're on the schedule to be off on Friday. So we want it to be the last day you're physically at work.
Any questions about that? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the termination employment policy as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you, that's all I have.
All right. Next on the agenda, we'll hear from Finance Manager Gabrielle Curry.
Good evening. The only item I have is the financial statement for the month of October. I have a couple things I want to mention. On the report, it shows the revenues, which year-to-date, which is from July through October, are lower than the operating expenses and the capital expenses incurred for that same period, which results in a deficit of $313,000. So part of the variance is due to some capital projects that were started last year but not completed, but they were included in the cash allocated. So even though they are getting worked on now, there was still cash available for those. So also another thing that has come up is the sales tax. The Missouri Department of Revenue changed their tax system in September 2017. So they have notified us that there is a lag from the time that folks submit their collections to the time that they're actually dispersed to us. So in October, the sales tax was under budget for the month, but it's still, our cumulative was still, 2% over 17,000, which it was higher than that the previous month. November, you're going to see that that's dropped due to the timing of the collections that we're getting. We received notification last week, that we're going to get another distribution, which we received. So December looks a lot better than November because they're playing a catch-up. So the other thing on here is under expenses. I put a disclaimer on there about the property and liability insurance premiums posted in this period, which made the period over budget because we budgeted the expense to actually hit in November instead of October, and so it made the actual month over, but then that washes out fine in November. So, does have any other questions about anything on there?
No, I guess my only question I'm always looking at is the sales tax collected from the interchange, where does that sit toward our projections, or those long projections we did? And I guess we're still
Is it
not
what
far
now?
enough into it too.
Okay, what was the question?
Well, you know, when we went out with the sales tax and all that on the interchange, we had all these projections as to when sales tax revenues come in, because it allows you to do that. And I always sit there and wonder is how good were our projections. So we're starting to see numbers come in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know if we're far enough along to sit down and say we did a good job of projecting. We didn't.
We're within 1% after 4 months.
And I think we did a pretty good.
I think that's a pretty darn good
Yeah,
job.
that's good. That's good to know.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from our zoning officer and building commissioner, Jack Hanna.
First item I have is the monthly building and code enforcement report.
How we come along on the rebuilding of the house behind the school? I know it's been a long process.
On
Is he,
410
the one that
Roy.
burned out,
He's had the plans for reconstruction approved and the permits issued?
is that where we are now?
Yes.
Do you have any guesstimate on when that's going to be done or completed?
He's supposed to be starting, he's supposed to have been started last week. We make contact with him on a regular basis. He's supposed to be starting any day to get that taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
And the permit, Jack, is valid for how long?
6 months.
We have made it very clear that we will not extend the permit.
Good.
So there's a 6-month period issued with the permit, and we will not extend that permit. So as not to drag this out for those neighbors any longer than what it's already been.
They've been through enough.
Any other questions about the monthly report?
Nope.
Next item I have is a special event permit SCP 32 approval request. It's an approval request for the Warrenton High School Alumni Cornhole Tournament. Special event permit SCP 32 to be held at the Warren County Fairgrounds on April the 7th, 2018. Motion for approval passed 8-0 with 2 absent at the December 12th, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting with no additional conditions, and Karen is here if you have any specific questions for her.
Do you have any questions for Karen in regards to this? No. You stay sitting then. Get lucky. All right, if there's not any questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the special event permit for the Warrenton High School Alumni Cornhole Tournament, SCP-32.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, seconded by Alderman Costello. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Costello.
Yes.
Alderman Ock.
Yes.
Alderman Miller.
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz.
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next item is the Dollar General Site Plan SP 109 approval request. As stated in the public hearing, the motion for approval passed 8-0 with 2 absent at the December 7th, 2017 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting with the condition of the cross-access agreement. Representatives from Dollar General's here if you have any specific questions for them.
And this is the bill that's been pulled off, right?
Yes,
What did I?
that was 17A that was pulled.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have some issues with the bill as it was proposed, primarily dealing with the cross-access issue. I feel P&Z overstepped their authority by trying to force an issue of having 2 property owners come up with an agreement. That's not really the city's business. If the property owners wish to come into an agreement on cross-access to each other's property, that's between them. That's not something that the city should be imposing any language on, in my opinion. And I cannot support that portion if it's in a bill at all. I think this is something that if you read the language that was in the notes, not in the bill, you know, to me, I just didn't feel very comfortable with that, and I can't support that staying and becoming part of the bill moving forward. I think if the two property owners in this situation want to work together, that's their business. It's not the city's business.
I believe we have some people here that would like to speak.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from both.
This is your time.
This is your time to come forward. If you would just come forward, state your name. If you would just come to the podium, state your name, and then speak on.
Kathy Kowinski.
Jack Kowinski.
And, well, I agree with Mr. Auk that we don't want a cross-access easement with Dollar General, and we don't wish for the city to impose it upon us.
So Cliff.
And the cross-access, I guess I'm playing a little catch-up here. So the P&Z wanted it in there for future development, is that the idea?
I think that was my understanding, is that one of the board members on the P&Z felt like cross-access would limit or reduce down the amount of traffic on Highway 47, which that didn't make any sense because those curb cuts are already preset in. They're not going to give us additional curb cuts just because of access issues. And so the feeling there was, well, wouldn't it be nice if you could go shop at Dollar General and you can go shop at Kathy's and you don't have to get out on Highway 47. You can just drive back and forth, which raises a number of issues. Who maintains it? Who does all sorts of stuff? And I mean, just before I continue, let me just say this is not a comment against Dollar General. I, look forward to their position being in the city. Look forward to the commitment and investment they're making. I just think that those kind of relationships between adjoining businesses are really in the private sector, not in the public sector, unless somebody can really clearly demonstrate there's a public sector benefit for it, and I can't see that.
Is someone here from Dollar General?
You can sit up front if you'd like, in case you would like to respond to anything.
Yes, my name is Mark Bush. I'm with developer Capital Growth Buckalter. Dollar General is our tenant. The cross-access was, not something that we had originally designed in our plan. It was, like I said, the Planning Zoning Commission, they were the one that recommended that or required that. We're okay with not providing cross-access, but I guess the question is, would our plans be approved without that? I think it was a condition of the P&Z Commission.
Well, my understanding is we can put additional conditions on, we can remove conditions, so that's not a requirement.
I guess that's my bigger concern, is you guys have been delayed quite a long time already. Are you telling me that we can act this evening without the cross-access, and we're going to get these folks their building permits going?
Yeah, and I want to get back to a couple of Alderman Ock's comments, on behalf of Planning Commission, or Planning and Zoning, but you can move forward. It's just a matter of whether or not we can alter the ordinance in time to get it signed. So if it's just the cross-access removed, the condition is not cross-access agreement. It's a cross-access easement from Dollar General to a Moment of Grace Florist. So I want to make that clarification. But you could move forward on the ordinance tonight. We can make the modification to just remove that condition.
But I think the point that Alderman Ock was making is the requirement to Dollar General to get a easement from their neighboring property.
Not to obtain an easement, to grant a cross-access easement to a Moment of Grace. There was no condition put on a Moment of Grace or imposing any condition or any restriction or any requirement. We were extremely careful to make sure that that didn't occur. The condition was Dollar General provide a cross-access easement to a Moment of Grace Florist. That was the condition. Now, there was a document that was circulated, that was Dollar General's document, that was essentially a covenant that they suggested and proposed, because originally Dollar General wanted to try to negotiate directly with the Moment of Grace Florist to just resolve the cross-access for their Dollar General corporate, wanted to know what the cross-access looks like. And essentially what happened was they couldn't come to an agreement. We reviewed, and there were some very stringent use restrictions on it that we said, you got to take this off, but we couldn't negotiate it for the Kohanskis. And so the document, at the original meeting in June, I suggested we just make it a requirement upon future development of the Kohansky property, Dollar General provide cross-access to that property. That was it. What we came out of at the December 7th Planning and Zoning meeting was the same condition: upon future development of the Kohansky property, Kohansky track, Dollar General provide cross-access. And it was not imposing anything on them now. It was just if there was a future interest in a alternative drive lane, which is a very common planning practice on major roadways, where there's a lot of traffic and highways and whatnot, to provide the alternative drive lane along Highway 47, parallel to Highway 47, for business accesses along that business district. So that's what it was. It was not imposing on them anything.
Isn't that typically, though, something we would have seen out of MoDOT?
No, cross-access is not something that affects, MoDOT is a curb cut issue. MoDOT fully supports cross-access here. Jack spoke with them and they support it. And the concept is, to alleviate the traffic, and you don't know, what if they put a barrier median along Highway 47, if they expand it? I mean, it's a possibility at some point. It's part of Highway 47. So the idea being, having a future planning concept that, and that's was the Planning and Zoning Commissioner brought up. Her comment was, why don't we just deal with this now if we know that eventually will probably be commercial development all along that strip there, that you can just get off and access at different points to maybe alleviate some of the turn movement and some of the traffic. And I think you guys develop these all over the country. Cross-access is very common in your developments and what you do. I know you guys don't like it all the time, but most cities probably typically make you put it if you're in a situation like you are.
But Chris, where did it become a requirement?
Well, Planning and Zoning wanted it brought up. But
it's not in anything that we require as a city by per ordinance or per our codes.
But that's not something. It's a planning issue. It's a site plan issue. There's stuff that's in the site plan ordinance that we don't require.
I understand, but I'm just trying to cut to the chase here instead of kind of speaking about a lot of these issues. The question that was proposed was, removing the requirement is not something that we're going to get ourselves in trouble with a code or with an ordinance issue.
Not at all. That was just try to provide for the future, if there was a parallel drive lane for the future development there. Because there is going to be a shared drive lane between, on the north side of the property, that's really where the discussion came out of, is that there's a stub street, Flora Avenue, and they wanted us to abandon it. And we're like, well, if we abandon it, we want that to be an access point for both properties. The more the merrier, right? More access there is. And so that was what we focused on. And staff originally talked about an access point to the south, a shared access, but we didn't recommend that in our report because it seemed like it was too much into the future to really plan for it. And that's what that one Planning and Zoning Commissioner said, well, I want to look at this now, and that's what Planning and Zoning wanted to look at.
But there again, to cut down on some of this, we have the property owners next to them, the developer, who both stated they really didn't want the cross-access. It's not a requirement per code, per ordinance. I think this is pretty cut and dry.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think the other thing that I react to is, it's not part of the ordinance, but I read this declaration of condition of easement with covenants and restrictions. And, you read through this, and it reads like this would be beneficial to the flower shop. But the reality is it should be beneficial to both places, because people could, in theory, come into the flower shop and drive to Dollar General the other way around. But you read through the conditions here, and it's like, this is all going to be at the cost of the flower shop. Dollar General it sounds like a one-sided agreement.
Right, but my response to that, Alderman Ock, is that agreement is really a red herring, because all that agreement is what Dollar General is recording on their property. And if you really boil that agreement down, the only thing it is it obligates them as the property owner now and any future owner of the Dollar General property to negotiate a cross-access. There's nothing that was going to go on it tonight. Now, like I said, our original recommendation was not to deal with the cross-access to the south. It was just something that we looked at when we dealt with the north one. So, you guys can remove the condition, there's no issues, but I just wanted to clarify a couple of those points. That agreement, I know everybody focuses on the agreement, but that's not what the city approved. The city, that's what they want to record, that's the language they want to use. The only thing we were going to do is to have a condition that said, if they ever develop their property, they will be required to provide them cross-access as an option for access to their property in the future. Because if they want to develop their property in the future and say MoDOT does put a barrier median in, it may preserve their access to, better access to Highway 47. That was the only purpose, and that was the intent. And I completely understand why the board would say that's in the future, we don't want to deal with that now if they want to work it out, because I'm sure Dollar General would be more than happy not to be required to provide cross-access to their neighbors.
And I don't think anybody
is that a correct statement?
Yes, and it would just make it a lot cleaner, and
yeah,
hopefully we could get a resolution tonight.
To answer the question that was asked
originally
minutes ago,
yes,
I believe, and correct me if this is wrong, Chris, there is no language in the ordinance you have in front of you tonight regarding cross-access. Correct, Melody?
That is correct.
The only thing that you would have to do is, in making a motion to approve the ordinance, add any other conditions that you would want to be included.
So let's talk about a couple of those conditions. I was a little bit surprised that the conditions didn't come out addressing operational issues. I mean, you go by some dollar stores and you might see an ice machine sitting out front, permanently fixed piece sitting out front. I thought we would see a restriction to say, we don't want that sitting in front of the store. I thought we would see a conditional restriction. You'll go by some stores and you'll see shopping carts sitting out front as a permanent thing. And I thought that they would address some of those issues.
Alderman Ock, if you look at the printout that Jack provided, which is actually large enough to read the print, not
You want
like
to be able to read the print?
not like what was in your Dropbox file.
Okay.
I think they did address that concern that was voiced, although it's not in the ordinance, which you may want to add it. But
Why
under
would
the
it be in the
site
ordinance?
notes,
When you adopt the ordinance, are you adopting the notes?
You're adopting
the
the
attached
site
plan.
plan.
The attached plan, it references it.
yeah, if you look under site notes, to item
Yeah.
number 2,
it's on the actual.
on the actual drawing that was in front of you tonight,
Hold on.
it says outdoor display and storage is prohibited. This would include shopping carts, ice, and propane containers.
Off to the side,
It's highlighted in yellow.
left side. Oh, left side.
So the ordinance is adopting these, even though it doesn't specifically say it.
It would
Because
adopt the
it's
site
part of the
plan, and this is
Mr.
part of the
Bush.
plan.
You don't have to stay in the whole time, Mr. Bush. If you want to have a seat right there, you can.
The site plan is part of the ordinance. Melody makes it part of the ordinance.
It adopts it by reference and is
Maybe I'm
incorporated.
thinking, sometimes we've had them spelled out clearer in different areas, as opposed to simply being on the site plan, that's why.
And you can certainly do that if you're more comfortable with that.
No, I mean, if it works either way, I don't care. But usually, that language sits somewhere in a document in terms of when we pass an ordinance, and I didn't see it. But if this is good enough, it's good. If it's good enough for the attorney, it's good.
I didn't see it either until Jack gave me a copy that was big enough I could actually read what
Yeah,
it
that's
said,
nice.
so don't feel bad.
As the age goes, the vision goes.
So what do you need, Mayor, for us to move this?
Well, I think before I entertain an approval for a motion, are you guys agreeable with that? I mean, what we discussed so far? Is this agreeable amongst both of you?
Is that enough to remove any cross-access
To remove the language?
the language?
Isn't that what you were proposing, Alderman?
Yeah, but it's not in the ordinance.
No, it is not.
Right.
So it's really, we've been discussing a moot point?
Well, it was a recommendation of planning and zoning,
Okay.
so if you had agreed with that, we would need to
Put it in
amend
the
the ordinance to add it.
Okay, but so if we don't add it in the ordinance and take it as it is, it's automatically out?
You're good to go.
Okay, it's not in there, okay.
Okay.
All right. So that's all.
I think we felt like it was a requirement that was given.
Yeah.
I know I did. I don't know if anybody else.
No, I do too.
On the document we have, it sounds like that. We don't know what the city has.
Correct.
But
And that's why I'm glad you
the
showed
one
up. And
that we have says we're responsible for everything, maintaining the insurance.
for the cross
We
action.
just don't want to be
Cross
involved in the deal.
access.
You're welcome to come and too.
So you're good if it's removed or not required, and you guys
If it's eliminated, we're good.
Well, it's not even in there because we don't have to
Problem
eliminate.
solved.
I guess now we're looking at it.
Well, but wait a minute, how, if we said the said application, the site plan is approved according to this map, and the map represents it, then we have to specifically take it out
Off the map.
off the map. So it has to be an adjustment to the approval of the ordinance to eliminate from the site plan drawing any cross-reference easements. So that has to be an amendment to the ordinance.
What I would suggest, Alderman Ock, which is a great point, is that I'm sure that they probably within 24 hours, I don't want to stick you on a time frame, will turn around an amended drawing to remove the cross-access. So I think if the ordinance is, the motion is made to approve the ordinance minus the cross-access shown on the site plan, I'm sure they'll have that drawing amended to us very quickly.
Okay.
Make it.
So is this,
Is that right, Brandon?
It's not my drawing.
No, it's not your.
It's their drawing.
So this is when we put the ordinance back on the agenda? Okay.
And you can approve it tonight instead of waiting.
I think we want to approve tonight, because they want to get going, we want them to get going, so we want everybody to sleep well at night.
So we're now wanting to add it back to
You
the.
can add that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now the water's as muddied as much as the Mississippi. We will go ahead and
Mayor,
add.
as soon as we get this issue
Sure.
finished, I'd like to have a couple of questions for Mr., from the Dollar General.
Oh, by all means. Mark, would you mind stepping back for me?
Do you have an estimated time frame of when you want to have your building up and ready for operation?
We want to start construction, I think probably around, but we want to close on the property probably, I think, by the end of February, so we'll be starting in the spring.
In the spring?
Yes.
And about how long does it typically make to
Well,
get your building up and get ready?
It's on a different case basis, but this one has some different upgrades on it, all brick building.
Mhm.
So it's, we typically have about 120 days in the construction schedule.
Okay. A lot of comments in the community about wanting you to come, wanting you to get out there and get going, so.
We're ready.
Yeah, I bet you are, yeah. We're ready for you to be there too.
Thank you.
Okay. That's all I got, man.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, with that discussion, we will be adding item 17A back to the list, which would be bill number 74-17. And Chris, I will let you know that you will walk us through that. And
It's an easy one, no problem.
that's fine, as long as you help us with the verbiage when we get to the bill. Is there any other questions about SP 109 for Dollar General? All right, this will be added back to the bills to work.
Next item is recording of the approved subdivision plat for the subdivision known as Highway 47 Dollar General Edition. On December the 6th, 2017, a written request was filed to request an extension to the 60-day requirement for the recording of the Highway 47 Dollar General Edition record plat. And this was, the plat was approved, the site plan was delayed, the 60 days has expired, so they're requesting an additional 60 days in order to get the plat recorded.
I would.
And once again, Dollar General's here if you have any specific questions for them, but that's the short version of it.
That extension.
I'd second.
Okay. And motions are on the floor. Are there any questions before we proceed with those motions? Okay. Motion has been made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Ock. We can have a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Next item is a request to revise the approved site plan SP 111 On April the 18th, 2017, the site plan approval request for Forest Ridge Villas, SP 111, was approved for ordinance number 2333 on December the 14th, 2017. A written request was submitted to revised site plan SP 111, and I've attached the revised site plan and written request, and there's representatives from Lewis Beatty and the property owner, if you have any specific questions for them.
You may be surprised.
If you want to just
No. I mean, I only have one question.
Okay, sure. I'm
So I assume-
Brandon with Lewis and Beatty. Sorry, let me get that out of the way.
You did it right.
You did good. So basically, the site plan's the same, you're just changing the name.
So they're changing the name. They would like to change the name, drop the villas.
Right.
There's been some confusion between title companies, lenders,
Right.
appraisers, all these things. When they see villa, their brain goes attached.
Right.
That's where their brain goes, and it's balled up some things. So they're requesting to drop the villas, just call it Forest Ridge from here on out. And what they're also wanting to do, there's been some confusion with the 1A and 1B, 2A and 2B. So they said, why can't we just scrap all that instead of going 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B? Just start at 101, give these all fresh numbers. So 1A will become 101, 1B will become 102, and so on and so on.
The lots.
The lots, correct.
Okay.
So right now the lot is legally lot 1A and B of Forest Ridge Villas. So what they're saying is get rid of these A's and B's because they're confusing things, and there's already been some mix-up with some title issues, and all that's happened so far is the developer has sold them to the builder, and there was a few hang-ups and snags and things like that. So what they're requesting is when we do an individual lot re-subdivision for each lot, lot 1A and B will become lot 101 and 102, and so on and so forth, as shown on the attached exhibit. So basically, we're dropping the letters and just going strictly to numbers, because the letters, they're also saying that the letters in their brains are denoting multifamily, and it's just causing some paperwork headaches and things like that. But besides that, same structures, they're building the same houses. Lot configuration as far as square footages and everything is exactly the same. We've just changed from a number and a letter to just a number. And then dropping the villas from just calling it Forest Ridge instead of Forest Ridge Villas.
Any questions?
So you got 2 homes up out there? Is that what you
Yes.
have? 2 homes?
Yep.
You're gonna build many more?
There will be a few.
There'll be a few, okay, good.
Right. So, need a motion to approve that, correct?
There's a bill.
There's a bill.
It's a bill later.
Oh, yeah.
To cover SP 111? See?
Yes.
Yep. There is.
Yeah, okay. Wait, Jack, anything else?
That's it, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. All right, next we'll hear from Maintenance and Grounds Director Brad Boozy-Cruz.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. We have my November report. We're still doing a lot of mulching and some grass cutting, not much more. We've got that pretty much slowed down now with the cooler weather, so we're kind of starting into the maintenance mode right now. So that's kind of why everything's kind of slowing up that part. But we are, I don't know if anybody's been out to look at the parking lots out at the athletic complex. Treehouse grading was out. Those are all graded and put new rock on those where it was needed. They really look good, so we're got those all locked up. We're going to let them set for the winter and then go in and put a new, we're going to spray them, spray lines on them in the spring, so we've got all that ready to go. So made a big improvement. He was worked out there probably close to a week grading them and putting rock on them. I don't know how many tons of rock we put on them, but that's all done. The new park, we've got the majority of the brush cut. We worked, I guess, last month, all month with that, with the, had a attachment went on front of a Bobcat and went through there and cut majority of all the underbrush, the honeysuckle and everything down, and then started working on the new trails. We've got the majority of those chipped. If you're all out there during the day sometime, you need to come out and look. The island is, you can now see it again out on the lake. We're getting ready to do some stump pulling on it. We got to take when Guy gets done with the little track hoe, we're going to use it for a while out there pulling some stumps along out on in the lake. Get those out of there on the island, get that dressed up. Since we got the dam fixed, we got some trees on the dam we need to get out. But majority of it now, we're concentrating on the trails, getting that all ground and getting that all ready to go for. Start getting in there and start digging those out and start putting the mulch in. I think we got 10 tractor trail loads of mulch supposed to be coming in for that. So as soon as we figure out where all these trails are going,
So I walk the trails. So how do people distinguish on the east, or the west side, where the park ends and where private property starts? I noticed there was an old barbed wire fence on part of it.
On the which side?
On the west side, you know, the property goes so far west.
Charlie Rediker's place, yes.
Yeah, so if somebody is out in the park walking trails or wants to wander around, how do they know they're not wandering onto Rediker's property? Like I said, I saw part of an old barbed wire fence.
Yeah, that's gone. That's mostly just pasture there now. When anything out in the pasture, it belongs to him.
Are we going to mark it somehow so people know?
I'm sure we will. So at some point, we'll have to kind of distinguish it. Right now, it's the end of the trees there. When you get out to the pasture, that's his. So we can probably put some kind of fence up or something up there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would, otherwise people may be wandering on his property.
Right, yeah, we can put some fence posts up, paint them purple or something.
Okay.
Just so he knows.
Any other questions? Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Public Works Director Guy Jeevers.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. First time I got my monthly report. Just to recap a couple of things. We did some concrete repair on Page Marie Drive and Arlington Way. We did some asphalt work on Peakney and Ceiling, resurfaced that to Boone Slip Road. We paved Jaspering Lane up at a complex. Did some sidewalk repair on Isabella Drive and Balboa Circle. Had a water leak on Johannesburg. We had 2 emergency sewer calls. One was private, one was on us. Any questions? Just a brief summary of what's going down.
I believe so. Thank you.
The next item I have is the equipment storage building. The budget amount, this is for approval for Ragers Construction for $48,500. The budget amount is $151,000. But we are going to subcontract the electric. We're going to put the concrete floor in and we'll get the heat put in. So we're getting the building and the garage doors insulated, installed for $48,500. That's basically, it's metal outside skin, set up kind of like a pole barn. The means came in at $106,900, and they gave us a quote for an all steel building. When we put it out in the paper, we didn't say all steel or all wood. It was up to them how they wanted to bid it. So I make the recommendation to go with Ragers Construction for $48,500.
So
that's going to be put up by the dog pound on the backside of where the dog kennel is. We got a spot out there to put equipment. We need to get some places for our trucks and our equipment to get them out of the weather and keep them heated. So that's what the budget price is for.
Which one will we go first?
One was been the Chevrolet and one was been the Cadillac. Is that kind of the way it comes out?
Yes, I mean, all metal or you got wood, then the metal's gonna be more money.
Yeah.
But I still had to throw it out there just to see what it would come in at.
If they go by bid specs and bids come in this far apart, there's a reason.
It's the steel, I'm sure the steel's higher.
Okay. Forget it. All right.
I need approval for that.
Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to award the equipment storage building bid to Regular Construction in the amount of $48,500, the low bid.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, second by Alderman Miller. What was it? Was it Delwood?
Yeah.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
The next item I have is a change order for St. Charles County Piping for $5,711.12. This came up with off of Middletown Road. We had a railroad bore. We extended it from a 6-inch to a 12-inch. After we got in and looked at the 6-inch, the 6 inches in good shape. So we're going to leave the 6-inch in place along with the 12-inch. And this cost us some valving and some T's and that to install to keep it in place, because we don't want to have to go under the railroad unless we absolutely have to. And last time we get a permit for that, that was $19,000. I don't want to remove nothing that's already there. So that's what this change order is for. So I need approval for that.
No questions? I'm sorry?
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Alderman Costello, seconded by Alderman Ock. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next item I have is the little update on the sewer. On the 13th, we fired up the new lift stations, had a few little glitches in it. Sewer lines are in, all over the treatment plant, the Water Street lift station, that's been completed. We're probably 97% completed. They got some cleanup work to do and some dirt work and a little touching up here and there, move some equipment. The lift station's running, everything's hooked up on the SCADA system. We can get all the information off of that. Generator's working, it transfers over. And the only good thing is at this time, we will eventually have to do a tie-in and remove the old lift station. But at this point here, we can keep the old lift station intact. We shut it off, it comes up a little bit, backs up into the new lift station. That gives us time to make sure if we got any glitches in the lift station, that if something fails, we can go back and fire up the old one and run with that. As of Wednesday, we had one little glitch, and then we just adjusted it. So it's been running since Thursday of last week. So what my goal was to let it run this way after the holidays, because once we commit and remove and do repiping to get to the new lift station, then we're committed. So if something goes wrong, I don't have a backup. So I'm looking probably after Christmas, sometime after that, we'll make the connection and go. But all the lines are in, force main's in, everything's working properly. And we're all getting communicated with the SCADA system, so.
So how far are we going north of town? Because it seemed like forever there was piping sitting there by the interchange, or the interstate on the north side as we were running the lines north.
That line went all.
Is it all the way to the plant?
All the way to the plant.
Wow, they made some real progress.
Yes, I think I didn't write it down, they have plenty more days, but we didn't have no weather delays to speak of, a few here and there, but they did make good ground. We'll have a few other things come up to final this out. We did the punch list last week. At the end of the week, first they had some lights to fix and just some minor stuff, nothing major. And then we'll do the punch list and see if we can get.
It was nice they went so far north without any surprises. Good weather and no surprises,
Yes.
that's great.
Well, a couple of small surprises,
Oh, well,
but they weren't insurmountable.
they didn't create a change,
Some solid rock, if you recall.
did they require a change? No,
Yes,
no,
that had to come to, because we're still working on the numbers and verifying everything that's in place with the engineer.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll hear from Chief of Police Larry Elliott.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. The first item I have for you is the monthly police report. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
Nope.
The next item I have up for your review would be 3 new policies. The only one of any substance or substantial size would be the use of force, firearms. You had a chance to glance through that one yet? It's pretty comprehensive.
Any questions on that?
And the on-duty injury pretty much follows the citywide policy. And the department firearms training officer is just renaming what we had previously called a firearms custodian.
Any questions on any of that?
One question for Chief. Where do you do your practice, firearms practice targets?
Where do we?
We're at the range, yeah.
Oh,
Range.
it's at the the side of the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay.
You've never been out there?
If you want to take a tour, I'd be glad to show it to you.
I'd recommend you do it. It's very nice.
You wouldn't use them as your target, would you?
No, sir.
Depends on how you vote tonight.
Any other questions? All right, I entertain a motion to approve the use of force firearms policy, the on-duty injury policy, and the Department Firearms Training Officer policy as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, seconded by Alderman Miller. Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you. And all of you hung with us for now, so I appreciate it, but we are starting with bills to ordinance. So I will entertain the first reading of bill number 74-17.
And we're gonna do this by making the first reading, and then when do we adjust it to take off the easement?
You can do a motion to approve bill number 74-17 with the condition that the applicant submit a revised site plan drawing removing the 36-foot cross-access easement to the southern portion of the property located to the south of the applicant property. Or you can do that exact same motion as an amendment and have 2 separate votes. So it's up to you.
Give us a simple one.
Yeah, exactly.
How about a motion to approve bill number 74-17 with the condition that the applicant remove the cross-access easement?
There you go, that's simple. So let's do the first reading, and then when I get to the second part,
I would do it now so you don't have to do a motion to
okay,
amend.
I'll entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 74-17 with the addition or amended addition to the developer submit a plan with the removing the cross-access easement. Oh, if I just said that, somebody better give me a motion. Thank you.
I was waiting for Scott.
He's in the war too.
Did you second it?
Someone that turned them on to.
Oh, is that what it was?
Motion was made by Alderman Ock, seconded by Alderman Deloy.
A zoning ordinance as authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for Dollar General located at 513 North Highway 47.
I'll entertain a motion for a second reading and passage of bill number 74-17 with the amended I just lost it. The amendment of the developer submitting a site plan with the removal of the proposed crossed access easement.
So move.
Second.
Yeah, motion made by Alderman Miller, second by Alderman Schultz.
In zoning ordinance that is authorized under section 405.390 of the municipal code of the city of Warrenton, Missouri, approving a site plan for Dollar General located at 513 North Highway 47.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. Entertain a motion for the first reading of bill number 75-17.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Deloy, second by Alderman Costello.
An ordinance authorizing execution of a bulk sewer treatment agreement between Montgomery County Public Water Supply District Number 1 and the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
Entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 75-17.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Schultz, second by Alderman Deloy.
An ordinance authorizing execution of a bulk sewer treatment agreement between Montgomery County Public Water Supply District Number 1 and the city of Warrenton, Missouri.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0.
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion for first reading of bill number 76-17.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, second by Alderman Costello.
An ordinance approving an amended site plan for Forest Ridge Villas located along Forest Ridge Drive and Forest Ridge Court.
Entertain a motion for the second reading and passage of bill number 76-17.
So moved.
Two guys at the same time. Who's going?
You don't matter.
So moved. So we'll do Alderman Miller, second by Alderman Schultz.
An ordinance approving an amended site plan for Forest Ridge Villas located along Forest Ridge Drive and Forest Ridge Court.
Roll call vote.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Bill passes 6-0. All right, folks, we are at that portion of the meeting where we'll entertain a motion to close the regular Board of Alderman meeting and go into executive session for real estate.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shell Harvey, seconded by Alderman Schultz. Roll call vote.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Deloy,
Yes.
Alderman Schultz?
Yes.
Alderman Shell Harvey?
Yes.
Alderman Costello?
Yes.
Alderman Ock?
Yes.
6-0, we are so adjourned. Thank you, folks.